those nights when you sit down, try to do all the right things, and somehow still feel like you're failing? That was me. I remember staring at my bank app, swiping past colourful graphs, and wondering why, despite all this information, my money still felt like it was slipping through my fingers. It wasn't that I didn't care. I cared a lot. I just felt lost. For years, I threw myself at every tool and trick I could find. I downloaded budgeting apps that promised to transform my finances with automated categories and cheerful alerts. I tried slick spreadsheets friends swore by. I even set up bank dashboards with complicated pie charts. At first, it was exciting. My spending neatly sorted into categories, a rainbow of bars and numbers. But then, reality set in. Apps asked me to predict a perfect month. A restaurant budget of $100, even though I usually spent $300. The moment I blew past that limit, the whole thing turned red. I felt like a failure. The guilt was instant, and so was the temptation to give up. Worse, those tools demanded constant attention. Every latte, every bus fare, every little thing had to be logged. I'd miss a few entries, get overwhelmed trying to catch up, and then avoid opening the app at all. The data turned into noise. The graphs that were supposed to empower me just reminded me of my mistakes. Even the apps that synced transactions automatically still required me to go in and label everything. It was like having a gym membership that only works if you also build the gym yourself. And because it was all happening behind the scenes, I found myself checking my spending less often. Out of sight, out of mind. The problem wasn't a lack of information. It was how those tools expected me to behave. They assumed I was a rational, perfectly organised robot with endless self-control. Spoiler, I'm not. One afternoon, after yet another, this time I'll get organised spiral, I went into a dollar store to pick up dish soap. At the checkout, a stack of cheap notebooks caught my eye. They were simple. Lined pages, flimsy covers, the kind we used in middle school. On a whim, I grabbed one for $2 and tossed it into my basket. There was no plan, no system. I wasn't thinking about budgets or strategy. I just liked the idea of writing something down with a pen. That evening, instead of opening an app, I opened that notebook. I wrote down the date, and then the one thing I'd bought that day. Dish soap, $1.50. The next day, I wrote down a coffee. The day after that, a grocery run. It felt almost silly, like keeping a diary of mundane purchases. But it also felt different. There was no judgment coming from a red notification, no categories to pick, just me, my handwriting, and the simple act of acknowledging money leaving my hands. It was so low tech, it felt almost rebellious, and that's what made it stick. After a week of scribbling in my $2 notebook, something shifted. The very act of writing down 4 urns, coffee and pastry made me pause. For the first time, I felt the small weight of each purchase. It was like stepping on a scale after ignoring my health for years. Nothing changed externally. I still earned the same amount and had the same bills. But internally, the fog started to lift. I realised that when I swiped my card or tapped my phone, there was almost no friction. Digital payments made spending feel painless. Behavioural economists call it the pain of paying. The discomfort we feel handing over cash. That pain is basically anaesthetised when we wave a card. A $30 dinner just happens. There's no sting, no salience. But when you have to write that dinner down, the sting returns just enough to make you think. This notebook forced me to pay attention. It didn't overload me with charts or categories. It didn't ask me to build a perfect month on day one. It just reintroduced me to my own money. Each entry created a tiny moment of awareness. It's like looking in the once a month. You don't beat yourself up, you just see what's there. There's a psychological term for this: cognitive load. Budgeting apps often add to our cognitive load. Too many categories, too many decisions. They assume we'll spend extra energy we don't have. My $2 notebook reduced that load. It was a single place to put my attention, nothing more. I wasn't tracking 47 subcategories or colour coding my life. I wasn't waiting for delayed bank syncs. I was simply writing down what happened in real time. Suddenly, patterns that had been invisible appeared. I saw, in my own handwriting, that my occasional coffee habit was actually a $120 monthly indulgence. I noticed that the cheap subscription services totaled almost $100. There was no algorithm telling me this. It was just me, a pen, and the realization that small things add up quickly. Most importantly, the notebook engaged a different part of my brain. Scientists talk about the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning and self-control. When spending is automatic, that part stays asleep. When you pause to write something down, you give that part a chance to wake up and whisper, "Is this worth it?" If any of this resonates with you, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not a guru. I'm just someone who tried everything else and stumbled onto something simple that finally worked. So here's a gentle invitation. Try it for 7 days. Grab the cheapest notebook you can find. Put it by your bed or in your bag. For 1 week, write down every single thing you spend money on. Don't change your behaviour. Don't judge yourself. Just write. Notice how it feels. You might find yourself pausing before a purchase. You might discover patterns you didn't know existed. Or you might simply feel calmer, knowing where your money is going. If after 7 days it feels pointless, you're only out the cost of a notebook. But if it helps, even a little, you'll have taken the first step toward turning a source of stress into something you can actually manage. I wish someone had told me sooner that the tool that would finally help me wasn't an app or a spreadsheet. It was a $2 notebook and the willingness to pay attention. Sometimes the most powerful solutions are the simplest ones. Hiding in plain sight in aisle 3 of the corner store,